Welcome to Celebrating Act 2. Celebrating Act 2 is the user manual for the second half of your life.
Hello to everybody out there. Celebrating Act 2 is really blessed today with a wonderful guest, Herbie Pilato. Herbie J, we've met him before, but it's just such a pleasure every time. It's like going on a treasure hunt every time we get to see you. So how are you doing, Herbie J?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Herbie J, before we go further, I think I owe the audience an introduction because you have such a long list of credits. I think they need to know where you're coming from. So you're a producer, a performer, an entertainment executive. You've pretty much done everything. And certainly you're a writer. You've dug out a dozen books. We've already talked to you and interviewed you about 3 or 4 of them at least. But you are a TV and pop culture expert is the way I think of. And of course, you've got your own show on Amazon Prime, Then Again with Herbie J Pilato. But the most recent thing is that you are now writing regular features for the TV Academy, Emmys.com. And you do great articles. These are wonderful little articles. It's open to the public. Anybody can watch them. And so I wanted to know, what is your favorite year for television? After all, here you are, an expert, mostly 50s, 60s, and 70s, I think you claim. But you really, it's not like you don't know anything about before or after. But what do you think, in your mind, what's your favorite year for television?
Well, my favorite year for television is really one of my favorite years in life, which is 1971. I was 11 years old. And it was just it was a coming of age year for me. You know, I used to look at the TV guide and I used to watch TV, but I didn't really comprehend the TV guide or really understand TV until 1971. And as it turned out, that turned out to be a banner year for television in general. All in the Family debuted. I mean, and changed the face of TV in so many different ways. CBS had canceled all the countrified, bucolic shows, anything with a tree in it, as it was said. Green Acres, Petticoat Junction, the Beverly Hillbillies, Mayberry RFD, which was the sequel to the Andy Griffith Show. They were all gone and, replaced by the more realistic or more sophisticated comedies, ultimately, of the Mary Tyler Moore Show and All in the Family and Maude later on and whatnot. So it was definitely a year of change.
I didn't realize that all of that happened in one year. I mean, I remember the shift being more gradual. All the countrified shows kind of drifting away, and they were on for years.
Yeah,
they were all big hits.
And they were hits when they were canceled, which I don't understand why there has to be this one or other mentality. Why couldn't, Green Acres continued right along with All in the Family? What's the big deal? It's happening now, certainly, with, the reruns, which are so popular and all the nostalgic networks. So I think the networks were a little too fast to let go of those, not only those countrified shows, but the cozier type programs, or the more classic TV shows that, all of them, like Bewitched was in its last year. The I.G. Magini was gone. I mean, there was no reason to let go of all of those kinds of shows for a new kind of programming.
Well, I think some of the shows are like just like All in the Family was more outrageous and outspoken, and maybe a result of Vietnam beginning to Vietnam was still near a peak, and there was all the protests and everything else. So why not have protests on and outrageousness on TV? So perhaps that was what sparked a change in programming. I mean, I don't know.
No, that's a very good point. I mean, the 70s was a revolution. There was the women's liberation movement. The hippies, were freedom of speech and all of that, freedom of love. Whatever freedom that they could go for, people went for. It was really also the beginning of the me generation, where everyone was just so proud of being who they were and celebrating that. So it was definitely a time of revolution and evolution.
Interesting. And one thing I think you can say, though, is that television does try to stay relevant, and always has, always tried to be um, not just a leader in. In fact, I'm not sure anybody in television was much of a leader, cultural leader. But they, in the very beginning, they did try to be cultural leaders, and then they tried to be relevant to people's lives. You could go way back to the early days of television, and was it the NBC Orchestra? They did cultural things, and then they did the first news show with. I remember John Cameron Swayze sitting behind a map, sitting in front of a map, a solid map, no graphics, nothing moved.
Yeah.
But it was the first news show, the Camel Caravan.
Yes, and shows like Sesame Street and the Electric Company were replacing, or at least, catching up with and surpassing Captain Kangaroo, which I loved as a kid and which was just really unique unto itself. But Sesame Street took children's programming to a different level around this time as well.
Absolutely. Well, there's no question that the 70s were a time of change, time of great change, upheaval.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And there were a few shows that kind of harkened back to the way they used to do things. As a matter of fact, as it turned out, 71, you saw Jimmy Stewart with the Jimmy Stewart Show, which was just a bizarre little series, but as cozy as all get out, and it didn't last very long. And then there was Danny Thomas returned to TV with Make Room for Granddaddy. Andy Griffith came back to TV first with Headmaster, and then the new Andy Griffith Show. Dick Van Dyke came back 10 years after the Dick Van Dyke Show with the new Dick Van Dyke Show. So while All in the Family and Marriage to Heather Moore were, on the rise, and while Green Acres and Petticoat Junction and Beverly Hillbillies were being, their trees were being uprooted, there still was some remnants of the way TV used to be. So it was kind of nice. And also, too, there was the Sunday Night Mystery Movie with, Columbo and McCloud and McMillan and Wife. Man, those shows are fantastic. The music alone was terrific. But the detective series in general was also changing. Mannix was becoming Kojak. Kojak was more realistic New York. And yet still Barnaby Jones was around then, and he stayed until 1980. So, and I love Barnaby Jones.
Yeah, I was going to say that it appeared to me that the movie of the week, which you so definitely threw in there, those were still, if not super strong, they were almost all the channels had a strong movie of the week, but live sports hadn't entered the scene yet.
Well, you mean the mystery? The mystery movies were
no,
really
I'm talking about the broadcast movies. That's where you would see a major blockbuster hit after a period of time, shown as a movie of the week. ABC.
You mean a feature film that was in the cinema?
Yes.
And then returned? Yeah, okay. But there was also ABC's movies of the week on Tuesday and Wednesdays, which were made for television. So there were the feature films like The Ten Commandments, which debuted on ABC, I believe, in 1973 after it was released in 1956. That was a big deal. Biblical epics were big. But ABC also kind of like ignited in 1969 the TV movie, which was really the Playhouse 90 of the 70s. They used to do the anthology films in the 50s and 60s, but ABC kind of like contemporized that whole genre with the Tuesday movie of the week and then the Wednesday movie of the week.
Right.
And then they did something called ABC Suspense Movie in 73. Yeah. So it was just, look, there was everything there. That's why I just didn't understand why CBS felt they had to cancel all those tree shows. They were so lovely, just lovely shows.
Tree shows, I love it. Yeah, the movie of the week were known as made-fors.
Yes.
MOW, Movie of the Week,
Yes.
and it was a big deal. It was a new concept for television to do your own feature film, even though it wasn't really a feature film. It was 110 minutes, right?
Right.
Which is just enough to qualify as a movie. And years later, all those Movie of the Weeks were sold as part of a movie package, as if they were feature films in a theatrical setting, sold
Right.
as a feature package, as reruns to television stations.
And a lot of them were backdoor pilots. I mean, $6 Million Man, Kung Fu, Get Christie Love. I mean, a lot of those shows all started as ABC Movies of the Week.
Right. Well, getting back to something more pedestrian, Laugh-In was still, I think, going strong. And so you still had a lot of those that were there for still another couple of years before.
Well, that was a very hip show, though. That was innovative from the beginning. I mean, people were, dancing half naked with paint on, and getting, they were stocking it to each other on that show, and it set out to be controversial. So Laugh-In was definitely ahead of its time when it debuted, I think, in 68 or 67. And Carol Burnett was still there too. So it was just a transitional period, no doubt about it. 71, man, there's a lot going on there.
Big change. All right. Do you think we'll see a 71 anytime in the future? Things have changed so much now. You've got so many channels. There's no reason to do what they did.
I don't know what we see today. I mean, I look, but I'm not sure what it is. There is no TV culture of today because it's such a mix mash.
I think that's a lot of that has to do with cable and
cable.
The internet streaming services, Netflix, all the other things that have so many genres in so much depth. It's amazing the networks are still viable.
Well, there's no more appointment television where the family would watch TV together, or you would all get together Thursday at 8 o'clock and watch the Waltons, or Tuesday at 8 o'clock and watch Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. Those kinds of things brought people together. There was a destination television or a designation television. You don't see that today because, number one, it started out with everybody having their own TV, in their room in the 80s, and then everybody started getting, their the phone and the computer, and it's just.
And plus, you can watch any show you want anytime
and binge watch it. In fact, the whole season's released immediately.
Yeah, and that's also that lends itself to the whole arc thing, the arc storyline, which I do not like at all. Where you have to, if you haven't watched the first season of, The Running Dead or whatever the heck it's called, then you're lost because the second season is a continuation of that, and it's one big episode. It's like, please, just tell the story in the half hour. Give me a middle or beginning, middle, and end, and let it go and move on to the next episode.
Well, I have to tell you that what I'm looking forward to is that there will hopefully be another, whether it be on Netflix or cable or broadcast, if it's still around. I'm looking forward to the lineup in 2031. So, in other words, we won't be talking about 71. We'll be talking about 31. And in 2031, I'm inviting you back, Herbie J.
Oh, you mean 2030? Okay.
Yeah, 2031, which I think is going to be a very good season.
Okay. All right. I'll be there.
Good. All right, Herbie, it's great talking to you. We'll see you again and talk more.
I hope so.
Television.
You guys are the best. Peace, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.